Shayla, welcome to RealPod.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, testing 1, 2, 3. You're live. So funny. As Shayla walked in, everybody, I was joking to her that her team said, you know, Shayla will talk about anything and anyone.
Anyone.
And I was like, anyone? I've never heard that from a guest before.
Right. Anything and anyone. I'm an open book.
Yeah. And then you started to tell a story, and I said, please hold it for the pod. So.
Oh my God. What was the story I was telling? Okay. So recently I had a conversation with a few of my friends, and it was just very casual. I was like, yeah, you guys need to stop editing your photos so much. And they were like, because it's one of those things that like nobody talks about, but I think people are addicted to, like the face app.
Oh, totally.
Like to where it's like transforming your face, and it's like you don't look like you.
It could make you smile when you're crying.
Yeah, it's kind of disturbing, and it looks like AI, and I hate it, and it looks bad. And so I tell all my friends all the time, I'm like, you need to stop. Like you all look the same.
What was their reaction?
They were like, oh, kind of like you just clocked it, like. It's very alarming when someone kind of calls you out like that, but that's just who I am. And it's like, I've tried to say it nice and it doesn't work. So I'm like, hey, like you guys need to stop using that. And mainly because it's like, you look good without it. You don't need it.
I love that you are just going to tell it like it is. And that's something I want to talk about today is just about that part of your personality. But also my friend recently said she was at an event and she was sitting next to like a really big Instagram gal and said right there at the table, pulled it up, editing the arm, editing the waist.
Oh my gosh.
Like zero shame.
Yeah.
You could see, but also someone who you would think needs to make zero edits to begin with. But it's like a almost like unspoken part of this industry. I feel like I'm even, we'll have conversations where I'm like, why doesn't my content look as like pretty or bright or like high quality as someone else's? And I'm like, is it that it's not high quality, or is it that there's like a beauty filter on it and they've done all these things and that's why mine looks bad because you can see my chin discoloration? Like
there's so many filters. Honestly, when Reels became when TikTok became popular and everyone was kind of moving to more video, all of my content from Instagram went from picture to video, and I stopped editing almost like cold turkey like that. And I feel like that has made me a little bit more self-aware of the edit, because in video you can't really edit. I'm sure there's a way to do it, but I don't edit my video content. And so now I think I'm just hyper aware of how edited pictures look nowadays. And I just credit like TikTok and Reels for like snapping me out of it, because I used to Facetune, and even now it's like if something looks crazy, I'll smooth, but I'm not gonna change how my body looks, because it's like that's how I look.
Yeah.
Or like say I take a photo and like something looks off, I'm like, dang, well that's how I actually look.
Right.
That's how I look.
I'm so glad that you kind of had that epiphany with the evolution of video content, because some people don't have that moment, and then they just continue to edit, and it's like you get farther away from how you look, and then you start to like really dislike your appearance and photos with your family and your friends that are supposed to be like capturing the special moments.
Right. And I try and tell people, I feel like the only way to really get it across, like this is how you look. Like there's nothing wrong with it. And it's like if someone's gonna tease you about how you actually look, that's more on them than you.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm. Speaking of you just telling it like it is, so the first time we met was at a Rare Beauty Thanksgiving. It was 2 years ago.
And I was like, girl, you need this.
Yes, you were. Okay, so you were telling me how I needed an attorney.
Yeah, I was like,
and this. It was at a point in my career where I was like, I wasn't there yet.
Yeah.
Now I'm there, so I have an attorney and looks at every contract. But there's so many things in this industry that you don't know until like you get to that next level,
or until someone
next
tells you.
to someone at a lunch and they're like, you don't have legal, and I'm like, no, and you're like, what are you signing? And I'm like, oh my gosh.
It's like
So I want to hear about how you learned everything you've learned to build this career. I know you're really candid about like literally starting from paycheck to paycheck, roaches in the apartment.
Oh my God. So
right.
Those
to
are my roommates.
now a beautiful, beautiful house, an extremely successful career that you've built all yourself. And somewhere along the way, you had to probably not have the legal to then learn, oh my God, I need to get it too.
Yeah.
So did you know you were going to become an entrepreneur and you were going to have your own channel?
No. I feel like I kind of just worked into it. Like I followed my passion, and my passion kind of led me to where I am now. But I do feel like, and I can't really remember the specific moment, but I feel like along the way, people have been like, oh, don't you have this? Don't you have this? And I'm like, no, do I need that? Like, oh, do I need a separate lawyer? My manager, who I I don't think all managers are created equal, but she was the one who was like, yeah, you need your own lawyer. Right. And she honestly, now that I think about it, didn't have to do that. And most people wouldn't. But yeah, she's like, you need your own stuff. You need to make sure you're protected at all times. And so I think some things you just learn along the way. Some things you learn because you went through something terrible. Like I've had contracts, and this is another reason why I stress that it is so important to have a lawyer, because I signed a contract with no end date. So it was like, in 5 years, they could be like, hey, remember, you still owe us this. And it's because I didn't have a lawyer to look at it. So it's like, I've made so many mistakes. And I think now that I'm kind of seasoned and OG, whatever it is, like, I just try and like help people as much as possible, because it's like, I don't want people to go through what I've gone through, or even worse, what I've seen other people go through.
There's no guidebook or,
there's nothing.
Becoming a creator 101.
There's nothing.
But it's so great that you want to help other women, especially because I do think the way that we have been brought up is to like, protect your space. If you get the end, take the end. Don't bring someone with you.
Right.
And I at least feel maybe in my circles I've gotten lucky, or like you attract good people. But for the most part, a lot of people want to help each other.
They do. Yeah. And I think if you've seen success in the industry, I think you're kind of secure with who you are, you're more inclined to help other people.
Yeah. I think the security is a
big thing. A lot of people are insecure, honey.
Yes.
A lot.
It's so true. And it's like, you don't want to, if you feel like you need more followers or you need more brand deals, like, you're not going to throw someone a bone and say, hey, this is what I'm getting paid on this deal, or hey, they're looking for someone else for this trip, you should come.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's so unfortunate, because there are so many people that will just, they want to see you burn so that they can go all the way up to the top. And I think the longer you're in the industry, you realize there's no top. Like, having more followers doesn't mean that your life is going to be so much greater and you're going to have this and that and that. Like, you could be a micro influencer with barely any followers and be very successful.
Yeah.
And I think when you start to realize that, like, it's not about like beating someone else, like trying to get this. It's just not about that. It's just about living your life to the fullest and just enjoying yourself and being fulfilled in what you do.
Yeah, I think about that often, because there is no end to the numbers. Like, you could always have another follower and another follower. The same way people who aren't creators could think, I can always have more money. I could always have more money, more money, more money. And I just talked about this on a chaotic solo life update, where I was like, when Kai Cenat turned down that like $60 million contract.
Oh, yeah.
And the quote was like, more is not always more.
Right.
And I was like, that's so refreshing to see, because we all just keep thinking we need bigger, better, more all the time, just because it's like our ego and it's what we've been trained to think. I noticed in the beginning too, you said that you love coming on pods because you can just like be yourself.
Yeah, and talk.
Did you not feel like you could be yourself and talk?
No, it's not that. I just think when I post content on my page, I feel like I have so many boundaries that I've set, and I don't even think I realize I set them, but sometimes when you talk about other things without being provoked or asked about it, and you're giving an opinion about something other than yourself, it can come across as being like, I don't want to say judgmental, but it opens up an audience to criticize you for what you're saying. Sometimes I'm like, I just want to protect my peace. I don't even want to deal with that, because I have so many opinions about so much, and sometimes I kind of limit myself because I just don't want to deal with like millions of people telling me no, or like kind of twisting what I say.
Yeah, I've gone in waves where I want to just post like the Justin versus Blake lawsuit
and
be like, hear my thoughts.
Right.
But then I'm like, and people will message me, what do you think about this? And then I'm like, Victoria, stay in your lane.
Right.
Stay in
it's
your
almost
lane.
like you want to talk about it, but then you're like, wait, I have this platform, and so it's gonna look like I'm coming down on one or the other. You know what I mean? I watch a lot of Housewives, and like the last episode of Roni, which I didn't watch Roni, I've like wanted to make videos about, but I'm like, I don't want the person on the show to feel like I'm attacking them specifically.
Yes. Wait, I really agree with you on this.
Yeah.
I don't like to talk a lot of pop culture.
Yeah.
I love to consume it.
Yes.
But it's hard for me to just spew judgment about someone I've never met.
Right. And
that's tough.
I'll do it on stories though. On Instagram stories, I will give my opinion, but I think it's just different when it lives on your page. And I think just because maybe we understand what it's like when it feels like someone's kind of attacking you, and it's like, I don't want anyone to feel like I'm attacking them. It's like, it's all fun and games for me, but like, say I go in on Blake, she's probably looking like, dang, like, and she'll take it personal. Whereas for me, I'm like, oh, it's just fun. It's entertainment. And so I feel like I just have a little bit of like empathy and maybe compassion for both sides, even if I think one person's wrong.
Mm-hmm. Well, the reality is we can just really never know what's going on
Right,
with
exactly.
anyone else other than ourselves.
Right.
And that's the thing too, is I'm like, well, I wouldn't want someone to chime in and like give their 2 cents about me when they don't know me.
Right.
But it's hard. I'm sure throughout your career you've dealt with so many waves of like being well liked and then being disliked and having lovers and then having haters.
Yes.
What have been your biggest takeaways to weather the storms of like cancel culture or just the swarm? A video doesn't hit.
I think you just have to, I mean, I've gone through situations where I've been in like an online feud with people, and I think you just have to learn to be like, well, this is something I do. I'm like, I don't care. Like, and I kind of don't. I'm like, well, F it. Okay, if everyone's commenting that they hate me, that's good engagement for me. That's the way it's like, you have to train yourself to think like that. And I think over the years, I've just kind of built like armor that just I've learned how to protect myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I try and look at negatives as positives. So like if people are going in on me, like say I say something and then it gets taken the wrong way or it gets spun or whatever, I've just learned to just be like, okay, well, look at all the comments. It's better for my engagement. I'll just leave it at that. I'm not going to look at anything. I'm just going to look at it as people engaging, and I'm going to forget it. I'm moving on to the next thing.
I need to take some of that.
Yeah. I don't, you know what the secret is? Like, say something happens and people are going in on your page, in your comment section, just don't look at the comments.
Yeah.
And then go on Instagram, if it's Instagram, whatever, and block keywords. I block keywords all the time. Like, if I'm trying to think, like when I first got my dog, and I don't mind saying this, and a lot of people have an issue with it, and it's fine I'm fine, but like her ears are cropped, and so many people are like, oh my God. So I just block certain keywords, you know?
Yeah.
And I get it. It's like, I have a Doberman Pinscher, and like I totally get it. Like, people are upset about it, but it's something that doesn't I don't want to say it doesn't bother me, but it's like I feel like I have a better understanding of just how dogs are and how different they are from humans. You know what I mean? Like, I have a really good trainer. I feel like I have the education and I get it, so it doesn't bother me. And if it bothers other people, that's totally fine.
What does having ears cropped mean?
It's like, do you know, like when you see a dog and their ears stand straight up?
Yeah.
It's like they cut part of the ear so it stands straight up. So it's more of like an aesthetic thing.
Got it. Is it done when they're like little?
Yes, done when they're little.
Does it have any benefit for the dog? Like, does it help? Or just aesthetic?
It's more of like an aesthetic thing.
Yeah.
And this isn't the same, but it's almost like if you see someone, they get their boobs done, they get some sort of surgery.
Right.
It's kind of like that. It's more of a look than anything. Yeah.
I had no idea.
And I'm sure people will probably be in the comments of this like, oh my gosh.
And they're upset because the dog doesn't have the choice.
It's like and it's like people are very particular about certain things. You know, a dog is completely different. They have different needs. There's people out there that overfeed their dog and they think that's okay. You know, they're putting their dog in an unhealthy situation, and that's fine. But you know, it's like people are very particular about.
I mean, I'm sure you love your dog, and it lives literally at 1% of dog life.
My dog is treated so well. Like, she has the best diet, like the best health. Like, she is just in like the best shape possible. Like, we really have done like everything we can to make sure that she's like, her needs are being met. Watch, under the comments of this video, people are gonna be like, oh my gosh,
but you know what's funny is I'm even like, this is where this is good for me, because I get a little scared. I'm like, well, I've never seen a picture. I don't even know what it's like, but it's like,
you want me to show you?
Sure.
You have time? Ears are up.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, I've actually never seen
this. A lot of dogs, you see it all the time, but you probably don't know it's like a.
I mean, the dog looks happy to me.
Oh, she's so happy, yeah. But I feel like even stuff like that, I think it's important to have conversations that are uncomfortable, where people maybe don't have all the knowledge, you know? So it's almost like a lot of people treat dogs like humans, like a baby, but it's not a baby, and the needs are so different for dogs, and I think that's always, you know, that's just a whole nother conversation.
But so you have boundaries, and you will find a way to show up online, but then on a podcast format or something else, you feel like you can kind of just be more.
Yeah, I feel like like I'm just gonna be myself. This is what it is. I know, isn't that interesting how I'm like more comfortable on a podcast than being on my page? Like,
I know,
because maybe it's different because we're actually having a conversation.
On that note, how are you with like vulnerability?
I feel like I'm pretty good about being vulnerable.
Okay, love it. Well,
I hope so. I don't know.
I was curious. I wanted to
No.
know the last time you cried and why, because you do have really
Ooh.
thick skin and you do seem like everything
Yeah.
rolls off your
Oh
back,
my gosh.
and that's really inspiring. And as someone who cried yesterday, I'm
Oh.
curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like my job, I never cry. Like you can never make me cry
In a
because
work setting.
in a work setting ever, because I feel like if you say something mean to me, I'm thinking there's something going on with you. Like, okay, you're being mean to me because you're projecting, you're going through this and this. I feel like I cry with like family. Like I had we were supposed to film, remember? Like a couple
Yeah.
months ago, I had a death in the family. It was very sudden. A cousin of mine passed away, and like stuff like that will get me like emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about it. Like friends, like I cry in movies. I'm a big movie crier.
Well, I like that.
Yeah.
It sounds like you have this like almost unspoken, if I respect you and you're in my life,
Yes.
then you have the right to affect my emotions for me to take your
Exactly.
advice or your
Oh,
commentary.
that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
But if I don't know you at all,
Right.
that's not something I'm going to hold space for or respect.
Right. And I also think it's just so many years of me seeing kind of like the same trend with comments and like what people tell me, and I'm like, this isn't about me at all. Like I can tell this is like really about you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You seem to have this awesome relationship with your husband, which is so special.
Yes.
How long have you been together?
Oh my gosh, I should know this. So we got married in 21, and then before that, I think we started dating in 2017. I'm the worst. Like I'll be like,
a long time. Maybe like
Yeah.
I'm bad at math too.
5,
Like 8
6,
years.
7. Yeah, 8 years.
Something like that.
Dating until now, 8 years. Yeah.
And what do you think are the things that have made your marriage so strong and continue to last, especially in the light like this?
Communication. Obviously communication. You have to respect one another too. And I think you have to understand each other's boundaries. And I think when Les and I first started dating, I wanted to be like that Instagram couple. Like I wanted our whole life to be on Instagram. I wanted that type of relationship. And then I think as time went on, I realized that that's not something that he wanted or liked. Like he doesn't really like being put on the spot, like start videotaping him and he's put on the spot. He doesn't want to perform for the cameras. And that's something that I recognize. And I was like, okay, like I'm not going to like force him to do that. You know, like our little joke is like one TikTok a month, you know, he'll be in one TikTok a month, but like, I don't want to do things that make him feel uncomfortable. And I certainly don't want to be like that couple that's online and just being performative.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think he kind of helped me realize like, you know, that isn't like, I don't like that.
Yeah. And it's nice that you were able to kind of meet him where he was at and not be like, I'm really upset and this is something that I need. And
right.
Like, also, sometimes people can flip it and be like, well, this is my career and you don't support me. And it's like, well, it's not about that.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. So I think for us, it's like him doing whatever he needs to do behind the scenes is supporting me. And that didn't happen overnight. Like me realizing that, okay, he really doesn't want to be on camera like that. Like he doesn't want to perform. It took some time for me to realize. And I think when I did, I was like, okay, it's honestly just better because then it separates our relationship from what's happening online, and it gives people less like info to criticize.
Yeah. I like also to keep it separate. Max is probably in my content more than your husband is in yours, but if Max ever had to never be in a video again, my brand would still be able to sustain itself.
Exactly.
And that's like, for me, because I started doing it all by myself.
Yeah.
In the content, that's how I like it.
Yeah.
But you obviously had this massive following and this brand that you'd built prior to you guys being together. So, I mean, now at this stage in your life, like, how are you staying motivated? What are you viewing as like that next thing for your page or for you? And do you ever feel like, I don't want to pull out my phone today, or I don't want to film a video? Or
yeah, all the time. Like I'm not that person that posts every day. I have a video right now that I'm like, oh, I need to finish and post. But like I just post things that I truly love, like, and that I want to share. So I really love fitness. I love walking. I probably talk about walking more than anyone else, and it's such a boring topic, but I love it. And I feel like more people need to walk.
Do you walk every day?
Every day.
Tell me why.
Every day.
Make me a walker.
Oh, you don't walk?
I like to walk.
Yeah.
But I feel like I have to put on my workout outfit. I'm maybe going to get moist a little bit. I'm going to have to find time to rinse. Like, it's just like, you know, to me, I'm like, I need like literally a 2-hour block to do my 30-minute walk.
Yeah. So I walk an hour and 20 minutes every single day. And I feel like it's like waking up and moving my body. I think it's just everything that I need. It clears my mind. It's like the perfect start to the day. When you walk, you release endorphins. It's so good for stress. It's good for your mental health. It's also good to just, I think, wake up and have like a moment to yourself, especially if you don't have any children. It's like you have that time. I like when I days that I don't walk, I feel like I'm like missing something, you know? It's just so good for you. Like anytime I have to make a decision with my brand or anything, I go for a walk and I have clarity. So I would say that walking gives you so much clarity. You have to do it.
When you walk, are you listening to a podcast or music? Because that to me too, if I don't have, my friends don't pick up the phone or I don't have a podcast I'm obsessed with, I get bored.
So walking indoor, I think, is very different than walking outside. Like it's been so windy by my house. So I've been going to the gym and I'm like, ugh, like 40 minutes on the treadmill is like almost like torture. But I'm like scrolling on TikTok.
Okay.
I don't even listen to a podcast. Sometimes I'll listen to music. But there have been times when I'm like deep in thought and I'm not listening to anything. It's just the sound, like wind.
But usually when you're outside, would you still be scrolling?
Oh, yeah.
Wait, you can't say walking is like all good for your mental health.
It is.
But then if you're on the phone, you could just be using a walking pad.
Okay, so if there's a decision I need to make, I'm not on my phone. I'm like trying to figure out, like I'm going through it in my brain, like, okay, what do I want to do? Da, 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 da. But then, yeah, like I'll scroll, I'll listen to people talk. I feel like scrolling is kind of like a podcast because it's like,
yeah,
you could listen to someone for like 10 minutes.
And honestly, if it is a positive for someone to scroll, then like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be a hater.
Yeah.
I do think for me, the doom scrolling comes quick and it comes sneaky.
Yeah.
And actually recently I've just been feeling so overwhelmed with scrolling. Like
Oh,
I've actually
really?
gotten to a point where I'm like not wanting to scroll. Do you ever get that way where like,
Oh, yeah, you get sick of it?
Your work brain's on, so all you're thinking is like, oh, that's a good video. Oh, they just posted 3 times this week. Oh, and it's like I just feeling like I'm not enough. The more I'm like consuming the content.
I'm trying to think.
You're like, no, I'm the shit.
No, I think like when I first go online, I feel like I'm looking at like what's going on in the world. It's almost like the news cycle comes first, and then like maybe there's a certain topic. My algorithm is like really. It's kind of like all over the place. But I get like all the current events at first. So I'm like listening to that and then people's think pieces on it. And so if I ever do get sick of scrolling, I'll put my phone down. Yeah.
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 I'm also curious when it comes to your business, what are the like business boundaries or routines and rhythms that you've like learned to establish? Like, do you have limits on how much you travel and how many things you say yes to?
Oh, yeah.
How you protect your personal time away from creating?
I'm big on, like, I say no to a lot. Like, I'm not the type of person that I feel like is easily influenced to say yes. Like, I think as a content creator, a lot people are afraid to say no. And I'm like, no. Or like if the deliverables aren't right, I'm like, no. Or like, pay me. Yeah. I'm very big on like, ooh, this is like, you're asking a lot. This is what I'm comfortable with. And so I'm pretty good about making like my needs clear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's so cool that you look back on your career and to see like that you used to be a makeup artist at Nordstrom's in Santa Monica.
Yeah.
And then wanted to do celebrity makeup. And then now basically are said celebrity. I mean, are you so proud of yourself? And like, what does your family think? And
okay, my family, oh yeah, everyone is so proud of me, but I think there was like a long period of time where they're just like, I don't get it. Like, okay, you're online, they don't understand how you're like living, you know, and doing and posting online. Like, how are you just surviving and feeding yourself? They don't get it. I think certain generations just will never understand what we do. But for the most part, like my family is just very proud, yeah. But
good.
part of me thinks that they don't really fully understand.
Still?
It. Yeah, I think
even
so.
when they come see the house?
Yeah, I think they're like, okay, yeah, you're doing well for yourself, but like, I don't think they really get it. Yeah.
Is that okay with you that they don't get it?
Yeah,
or do you wish they
totally
did?
fine.
Yeah.
I'm a content creator. I think what maybe they don't understand is like the branded deals of it all.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they're like, oh, you're doing so well. Like every time I'm around my family, they're constantly like, we're so proud of you. You're doing amazing. Yeah.
And what are you the most proud of yourself for?
Probably starting my own brand. And it's so like new. Also, like I'm really bad about looking back at my life and being like, oh, I did that. I'm so proud of myself. Like I don't do that. Like I don't celebrate myself in that way. I feel like as things happen, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. This is fun. Nice. Okay. But I never look back and I'm like, oh my God, yeah, I did that.
Mm-hmm. Don't celebrate the wins.
Isn't that wild?
I think I'm similar though.
Yeah.
And I saw something that actually made a lot of sense to me the other day. And it was like, when you just expect greatness from yourself, you're not as like surprised or celebratory because, yeah, I did and I should have. Like, and I was like, wait, I really relate to that.
Yeah, that's me. I did and I should have.
It's kind of,
isn't that wild?
It's like, it's awesome that we have that belief in ourselves, but it is also a little sad when like the other night I had this really exciting, impressive, rewarding evening for the charity I founded. And that night I went to sleep like, oh, and I got to do this and I got to do that. And I was like, Victoria, like the dinner that just happened is like the highlight of the quarter for like someone else. But for you, you're like going to bed thinking about tomorrow's. And that's where I'm like, it's not healthy, you know?
Yeah. But also I think that sometimes, and I don't know if this is like toxic for me to say, but I think sometimes that's the difference between people who are successful and people who aren't.
No, like you're not wrong.
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Things that I feel like I go to the therapy and I'm like, these things cause me to feel restless, chaos, and distress are also the exact things that have made me successful and like accomplished in my life, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, and
that's why it's like you just have to figure out the balance.
Mm-hmm, right. It's like there's pros and cons to everything, and yeah.
Because imagine you sit back and you're like, oh, I just did this, and then you're like, I'm gonna take a month off. And it's like,
right.
Yeah, maybe you deserve that month off, but also like
you're so right. So then what's our answer? Like, are we just then always going to be constantly like until
I think you just have to figure out like the balance for yourself. You know, like what can you do on a daily basis to create a little bit of balance? And that's like, for me, it's walking.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I need to try the walking.
It's walking, and it's like just having that moment to myself where I'm just like, okay, I'm doing something that's not related to work, but it's making me happy and fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I think you just have to figure out the balance for yourself. But also I think it's good to have kind of like that drive, like you want to just keep going. You have that push. A lot of people don't have it.
I think it also is about understanding like why you have the push and if it's the right reason. And
right.
I think if someone's doing it for like they want to feel validated by others, or they want to feel worthy of love from their parents, or, you know, those things maybe like, okay, let's work on it. But if it's also just like, I love to constantly be in pursuit, I love to be creating, like that's good. But then the times where I am feeling like spread thin, learning, okay, well, then what do I need?
Right.
Because sometimes I think I'll look at other people and be like, oh, this is how they do their thing. I should just copy paste and then I'll be feeling that way. And it's like, no, we're all different. And
right.
And then also maybe I should stop judging myself for going to bed on that night and like thinking of the next thing. Like, you know what? Maybe we should not feel bad that we don't stop and celebrate the wins.
Right.
Because this is just how we are. I agree with you. I'm not the type to be like, my best friend jokes because she'll call me and be like, how was going on the Drew Barrymore show? And I'm like, it was great. Yeah. She's like, what else? I'm like, you know, it was great. I lived the moment and I'm here now. What are you up to? She's like, Victoria, like
it was good. Yeah.
I'm not going to recap for 45 minutes and then talk about it for the next week. Like I try to be present and I keep going. Yeah. But then it's like, I'm upset with myself that I don't do it the way I'm maybe supposed to, but maybe that's then causing the distress because I'm in the moment, I live it, and then I'm in my next moment. I
think a lot of us get caught up in like what we're supposed to do, and like what we're supposed to do is sometimes what someone else is supposed to do and not necessarily us.
Mm-hmm.
I think about that a lot. Like there's so many things that society even tells us that we're supposed to do, and it's like, who made those rules? You know, we don't have to do that. So I think as long as you're like fulfilling yourself and you're doing things for the right reason for yourself, I think or your relationship, you know, I think you're going down the right road.
What do you credit for having self-awareness and being able to reflect on these big ideas?
I think, oh my gosh, I think it's just like, I'm the type of person, I'm always trying to learn. Like I'm paying attention, I'm learning. Also, I think maybe it's the way I grew up. You know, I grew up in a house where my parents were always working, so they weren't there. I was very independent at such a young age, which I think can create its own kind of trauma. And maybe that's why I'm so independent. So maybe it's just my childhood mixed with just who I've always been meant to be, you know?
Have you ever gone to therapy?
I haven't. I know.
Well, no judgment. There was no judgment. Roll the tape. I kept a totally fine face.
Yeah. Therapy is great and I probably should go, but I haven't.
I mean, like you just said, what works for one person works for another. And
right. I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah.
Like I would totally go, but I just haven't really been like, dang, I need to like talk to a therapist about this.
But it sounds like you already have so much self-awareness people go to therapy to try to figure out, oh, my parents weren't home a lot. I had to figure out how to fend for myself. And that's why I'm independent now.
Honestly, I learned a lot online. Like, I think listening to other people's therapy sessions, I'm like, dang, that is kind of like what I went through. And dang, that sounds familiar. Yeah.
What do you think about the whole inner child stuff?
I think my inner child loves spending time because maybe my parents weren't there, and it wasn't that they weren't there. It's not that like they weren't there emotionally. Oh my God, am I getting emotional right now?
Shayla.
It wasn't that they weren't there emotionally, but they weren't there because they were working so much. And so I think, oh my gosh, therapy? No, and that's something like I've talked to my husband about. Like for me, it's spending time together. Like that means the most to me. And for me, it's like my love language is gift giving or towards other people. Like I love that. But then I like receiving just time.
Quality time.
And I think it's because I grew up in a household where it was like just me and my siblings most of the time because my parents were always working. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean, of course they were there on the weekends, but it was like during the day, it was like just us.
And they're working to then help give you this amazing life that you were able to go to college and then build all this for yourself, Right.
And I think, so and it's crazy because I'm very much aware of like all of these things. Like I think like you were saying, the reason why I've been so successful, it's because of my childhood, mm-hmm. And I sometimes wonder, I'm like, would I have turned out to be a different person if I had like a stay-at-home mom who was always there, or like my parents were always there, or like because we lived in the suburbs but they commuted to work, so it's like they were spending like maybe like up to 4 hours a day just driving, commuting. Mm-hmm. So I just wonder, like, would my life be different?
And do you love your life now?
Yeah, I love my life now.
And would you change your life now?
No.
So that is always, I think,
it's such a struggle. And like I have an issue where when I see, so say I have like a family member who is going through life and it's so easy, and I'm like, you need to do this, you need to work, you need to do this, and they just don't have that drive to want to do more than like, oh no, I'm fine with this job. And it's like, no, but you can work 2 jobs, you could do, because that's what I did. And I feel like that shaped me to just have that drive that I have now. It's like interesting because it's like you almost want people to go through what you went through, but you're like, I don't know if what I went through was the healthiest thing, mm-hmm.
And it sounds like you want success and the best outcome in life for other people, but not everyone wants that for themselves.
Exactly.
And that's really hard. And back to like us having the mindset where you're like, well, maybe that's just how successful people think. It's like we see, oh, here's the formula. I believe in you. You are talented and amazing.
This is what you have to do.
Yes. And then they're just like, oh yeah, maybe in a week or two. And they just never do it.
But it's like they don't want that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's very difficult for people like us to like let go.
I know. And that's why I think sometimes I'm afraid, like, dang, if I have kids, am I going to be that parent where I'm like, you have to do this, you have to, like, you know what I mean? Or am I going to provide my child with a life where it's just easy? And that's kind of terrifies me a little bit.
I don't think it has to be one or the other.
I don't think so. I almost feel like, it sounds strange to say, but there's a benefit to like growing up and kind of struggling a little bit.
Definitely having to face adversity and learn how to be resilient and overcome tough times, I think I'm going to butcher this, but like, all right, people, I've Googled it and I found it. All right. So it's the story about Siddhartha. So the Buddha's father really wanted Siddhartha, which was his son, to have no suffering. So he kept him in the palace, this beautiful palace, like from the outside world, everything this kid could ever need, food, clothing, warmth, toys, like everything was perfect. However, Siddhartha ended up running away from the castle to basically learn suffering because you're not able to be a human and really experience humanity if you don't have suffering.
Right.
That still might not have been 100% it, but it brings me back to what you were saying of like, there is beauty in suffering. And I think that can be really difficult for people is like, why do we have to experience tough times? But if you look back on every single hard thing in your life, you've learned something from it and you've gotten stronger from it. You might
Right.
not wish it on your worst enemy,
Right.
but you might, in a weird, toxic way, love the person you are because of it.
Exactly. And I think, like, I look back at my times when I was living with the Roaches, and like I was really like, I'd get my paycheck and it was like gone. I would have $30 and I'm sitting here like, how am I gonna make this work? And you almost like hate your life at that moment, because you're just like, I know I'm destined for more. This isn't where my life ends. Like, I'm not supposed to be struggling and all these things. And I think just being able to recover from that and just get out of that hole, it makes you so strong,
How did you push through those times where like the paycheck is gone, you're needing to make your next dollars, and it feels easier to give up?
So around that time, I was working at Mac, but I was also freelance. I was the type of person, I'm like, I'm gonna do whatever it takes, And I remember someone mentioned, they're like, oh yeah, people are posting on Instagram and like they're getting jobs from it and this. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna post on Instagram. So I post on Instagram, and maybe a couple people be like, oh, I like your makeup, and that would motivate me to continue to post. And then I was like, how can I figure out a way so people in the area know that I'm here? And then I'm using hashtags, so it's like constantly just figuring out a way to make it work. You know what I mean? And taking every job. So if that meant I'm not hanging out with friends, maybe I don't have any friends. Maybe I'm working 8 hours and then after that I'm doing someone's makeup. It means that I'm not spending time with family. I'm not going on any vacations. I'm doing whatever it takes. And that kind of just got me to where I'm at now. Like, I really was just like, no, I'm going to make, I need to make money, and I'm going to do whatever it takes.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
No, I really like, and it's so funny because my husband's life has been so different. So it's like, for him, he's just like, he doesn't understand the struggle, and he didn't go through it the same way that I did. Like, he was given, I don't want to say he was given so much, but like when he was in high school, he was given a car, and so many things he was given, I had to work for. And so I think, in a sense, maybe that's even beautiful because we balance each other out, because I have that like, no, you have to like struggle and work, and
Mm-hmm.
you have to put work before everything, which in a way isn't always, that can be kind of harmful in a way. And he's like, no, you can achieve your goals without having to struggle and do
Yeah.
this and that,
Yeah. And I come from privilege. So speaking
Mm-hmm.
on the opposite end of the spectrum, I mean, the area I grew up in was, it's just a filthy, wealthy
Yeah.
zip code. And the amount of pain and heartbreak and lying and just behind the walls of these beautiful houses and these white picket fences and these perfect Christmas cards, like, that I think I grew up seeing what maybe people aspire to have at the end of their life. But then I would see that and be like,
And like, ooh.
this family, like, there's so many things going on behind closed doors, like with these families and these people. And even now, my family will talk about like, look, how this ended up or what happened to these people. And it's like, money is not the answer. And like the big house and all that. So it's like people find it differently. There's so many kids who I know who grew up with everything and are really not in a good place right now. Really not. And they maybe because never had to struggle, never found identity, never felt, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, yeah, it's interesting how, I guess it makes me think about how on the other side of it, the people who do sometimes don't get me wrong, like when people can be clothed and fed and like have money, it's a huge blessing and a privilege.
Right.
And it's also not always the answer.
Yeah. And what's crazy? I think when I was like in that moment when I was struggling like so bad, I don't think I ever sought to be like, oh, I want to be like the richest person. I want to have this big old house. I think I just wanted to have like a home, like I just wanted to have like a clean house. I don't even think in those moments I ever thought like, oh my gosh, I want to have $1 million house. I want this, I want that, I want that. It was more so like, I just want like comfort, like I've always just been after like, I just want the best for me, comfort. And it's interesting because I don't think I've ever had like a goal of one particular thing. Like, oh, I want, like, I know people out there who's like, oh, I want this. I want like a 10-bedroom house and this and that. Like, I've never been that person to want excess, I guess. I've just been I just want comfort. Like, I just don't want to have to worry.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe that's also a key to success, not wanting too much, just wanting better.
Yeah. Once again, it's like just proves you, I mean, you're so like smart and wise and strategic and like have had like a really good compass in life to know that from the beginning that like, you know, it's not about getting this particular type of car.
Right.
It's about having a strong relationship with someone I can count on.
Right.
And like knowing that the next day I'm going to be able to eat and like have this bed.
Right. Like my husband's always like, so like, what's your dream car? And I'm like, I don't have one. Like, you know, like I feel like I'm just like, I'm fine. Like I'm content. If I could live my life exactly how it is now for the rest of my life and not make more money, like I'd be fine. Like I feel like I just feel fulfilled in that sense.
I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
That's like so fucking major.
But that doesn't mean I'm still over here like, okay,
I know. Right. It never feels over. But that's because the pursuit is fun. That's like, it's your hobby. Like the next video I could create, the next set I can do my nails and like what they're going to say, like that all comes back to such purpose. It's not like I'm just going to do this to get the check. It's like, you know, you can be tied to something deeper, have something purpose. I like to think about that with my work. I'm like, I want there to be purpose in everything I do.
Mm-hmm.
Could I make a video talking about something pop culture and it would be polarizing and do really well? Yeah, but to me, that doesn't feel like it's aligned with purpose. And so it's not something I want to do, you know? And then I think in the long game, we're happier.
Right. And I think it's always important to just follow your passion. Like your passion will lead you exactly where you need to go. You could have a passion for slippers. Like, oh my gosh, I love slippers. Like I love designs on slippers. And you could just talk about that. And then that's going to lead you exactly where you need to go. My passion was makeup. Like I love, even now, even though I will never do anyone's makeup. Like don't ask me to do makeup. Okay. I'm not going to do it.
Not even like on your friend before you go out.
Absolutely not.
Boundaries.
No,
And that's
I'm
on
like,
boundaries.
I'm not doing it. It's like too much. It's stressful. No. I'm not like, I love doing my own makeup, but now it's like, dang, there's other things that I love. I'm passionate about fitness. You know, fitness is something that I feel like has kind of taken over. Like before it was like makeup, fitness. Now it's like, okay, I really love fitness and just making sure that you're doing things for your body and, you know, being happy in that space, being happy in your body. And so I feel like I started to pursue that. And it's like, I'm constantly pursuing things that I'm passionate about. And I feel like that's really what really leads you in the right direction.
How do you handle those identity shifts? Because you might have people saying, but I preferred your makeup videos, or I liked when you did makeup, or I wish you came out with a palette and not athletic wear. Like, how do you handle that? Because I struggle with it.
So, you know, that's interesting. I don't know. Maybe it just doesn't affect me because maybe I do get comments where people are like, oh, another palette. And I'm like, well, I don't know if I'm going to do another palette. Like, I'm more so like, I want to make sure season 10 is doing what it needs to do. And so I don't even think twice about it. Like, it's not even, maybe it just doesn't affect me. And I don't realize that people might be making those comments. And I'm just like, oh, well, that's not going to happen.
Maybe they're not. I had that experience.
No, I think people have said,
really,
especially when I go live, people will be like, oh, a palette, this. And I'm like, girl,
buy my yoga pants.
Right. I'm like, that ship kind of sailed. Like, I mean, I would be up to doing another palette, but I feel like my passion is more so with like fitness and just health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for everything you shared. I
Yeah,
loved this. This really filled my cup. I feel
like
with everything.
This was great.
Oh, yay. Yeah. I'm so glad you feel that way. But yeah, this was really filled my cup. I love when people are just like real and honest and open. And I feel like that's always why I like gravitated towards you. And after that first lunch, I was like, she's so cool.
And thank you for the whole inner child thing. Cause I'm like, it's something that I think I've realized, but I've never said it. And I think words are so powerful and it's different when you say it out loud versus like, okay, yeah, I know this is going on. Like, I know this is something that happened in my childhood, but I think to say it, it's, I think, powerful.
I love it. That's my favorite thing. I'm like pretend therapist of my friend group.
Yeah. No, it's great because it's like, you just never know when you need that moment where you're like, dang, like, yeah, this is why I'm like this. And that's okay. And it's okay to be emotional about it.
Yeah. And that is literally the point of this podcast. And that's why I call it RealPod. So thank you for giving a quintessential interview, Shayla.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Yay.
This was fun.
Yay.